Football made simple. Become great at your craft by finding ways to make it simple for those around you. This is the Coaching 101 podcast hosted by Find a Way Productions with your co-host, Daniel Chamberlain and Kenny Simpson. What's up, coaches? This is the Coaching 101 podcast. I am Daniel Chamberlain. That is Kenny Simpson. Coach, we are joined by a legend of Northeast Oklahoma right now.
Excited to hear, man. You're my coach here in Arkansas. I know all about what these guys are doing. And, we've offensively, it's always fun to watch guys that do a really good job. And so I've checked out a lot of the stuff from Bixby and what they've been successful at. So I'm excited to hear Coach. And I'm not going to steal any time from him. I just want to kind of hear what they're doing, because I really, really enjoy, especially the shifts and the trades and the multiplicity of what they're doing at the high school level.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Coach Schneider, welcome to the show. We were waiting for 5 seasons for this day. So, man, we do appreciate you taking some time out of your morning and jumping on. If you don't mind, you probably don't need an introduction for most people in our area, but across the nation, people are watching. So if you don't mind, give us a little introduction, who you are and where you've been, and then we'll get on with the rest of the show.
Okay. Tyler Schneider. I'm a 2004 graduate from Weatherford, Oklahoma, out in western Oklahoma. After Weatherford, I went to SNU in Bethany, Oklahoma. It's in NAIA school at the time. They're now Division II. Played football there for 4 years. Got into coaching during my student teaching at Mustang, Oklahoma. At the time, it was kind of the first school in the state that was throwing the ball around, lining up in 10 personnel. And I had got to play for their head coach in the All-State game, got to play in that offense. So I knew whenever I was finished playing, I wanted to learn that offense and coaching, that kind of stuff. So I did that for a year while I was student teaching. Then I moved to Sioux Center, Iowa, to Dordt College. It's now Dordt University. Coached there for 2 years, kind of helped get that program started. It was their first varsity season, the 2 years that I was up there. Kind of ran gun option, triple option stuff up there, so got to learn that, exposed me to different stuff. I grew up playing in I formation, so all that was new to me. And then after 2 years in Iowa, I was fortunate enough to land in Bixby here in 2011. Went through a couple growing pain seasons, transitioning from 5A up to 6A. Took us a little bit to get it going, but then won our first state championship in 2014, and then just kind of trying to keep it going ever since.
Hey, the hardest thing to do in sports is win your competitions, and you're doing it on kind of a click right now. So,
and it's not easy. It's not easy. We something that Coach Montgomery preaches to our kids a lot. Winning's hard. Don't forget that. Don't let that become something you think is just going to happen. It's hard and it takes a lot of work, but it's worth it. Those nights in December make it worth it.
For sure. Well, Coach, man, once again, thanks for jumping on with us. Kenny, real quick, let's knock out the quote of the week, and then we'll move on here.
Yeah, going with a little Nick Saban today for quote of the week. So quote of the week, Nick Saban says, "Your attitude is critical to success. If you expect things to be difficult, it will always be easier to solve the problems, overcome adversity, and have an enthusiastic energy about how you would go about and enjoy your work." We've kind of mentioned this before, Daniel. We had this, the topic on this is optimism, but really the reality is a lot of times we want easy, quick answers. And when we flip our mindset to the fact that things are just hard, Coach just mentioned it, winning is hard. No matter if you're winning a bunch of games or not winning, it's hard. And if you get your kids to start recognizing that things are going to be hard, so you might as well get down and grind and get it done, that you're going to be a lot more successful than complaining and being upset and wishing it was easy. And I think that's the biggest mindset we've seen change with our kids, and has made it we've been a lot more successful once our kids recognize it's just going to be hard. Like, it's not going to get easy. You just have to embrace that it's going to be hard.
Yeah, I watched some of his since he's retired from coaching, and it seems like the biggest reason he got out of ball was the kids have changed so much, right? And I hope that doesn't trickle down to us as much at the high school level. I know coaching college has got to be a pain right now. I don't know that I would want to go deal with it, but just the mentality is different. It's just it seems like a lot of kids are chasing money and the inconsistency. So I'm sure it's hard to even get that message through to people, right? Life is hard, and it's going to continue to be that way. Kenny, you said it really well a few episodes ago, right? Just you better change your mindset because you better go get hard too. And I don't know that situation is really conducive to them making that change for themselves.
Well, and you look at, I know this is not the topic of our podcast here today, but we got a coach on here that's in that. Like, if you're at an upper level high school where you've been successful, you're going to face that. You already are facing that. You're dealing with probably transfers coming in, high expectations, kids trying to play collegiate football. So you have all these inherent selfish motives that are going to be there. That doesn't mean the kid's a bad kid. We as a coach have to teach them that we've got to make a selfish society unselfish so that we can be successful. Nick Saban did that at the highest level for a long, long time. And eventually, of course, he got out. But, if you're at the high school level right now and you're like coach here winning state championship, you have to figure out ways to motivate inherently selfish kids to keep them part of a unit and part of a team so that you can have team success. And that's a tough battle everybody faces, whatever level you're at.
Yeah, for sure. All right, man. Well, Coach, if you will, tell me how we can simplify football for our staff and for our kids. What's up, coaches? I want to talk to you for just a few moments about your program. The longer I'm in this profession, the more I understand that efficiency is truly the name of the game. You're talking offense, defense, doesn't matter, right? Eventually, you're going to come down to checking out your efficiency. So I have to ask you, are you doing everything in your program the most efficient way, right? Are you fundraising the most efficient way? Are you representing your players and your program to the public in the best way? Are you planning to build the facilities the most efficient way? If you answered no to any of those, or really even if you answered yes to all of them, and you haven't contacted Mark Bridges at Ace Sports, you're missing a key step. So look, Mark and his team, they are the go-to group for video board and scoreboard installations for your school. They're not just football either. Mark can help you mock up your newest video board for that new stadium, or maybe even your old stadium, right? That's where Mark and the guys come in. And we're not just buying a flashy thing, right? Yes, it's nice. It's pretty neat to have that big scoreboard, that big video board, but you're also, you're investing back into that program. You're investing into that newest fundraiser. Sure, you can keep selling your discount cards, your beef jerky, hosting pie auctions, whatever it is that you like to do. But let's just be honest with ourselves, guys. We're not making enough money for those big ticket items. For the big ticket items like turf, an indoor facility, that's where you need a big ticket item fundraiser. That's what Ace Sports is offering you today. Guys, I've talked to Mark several times now, right? And it always comes down to big school, small school. Right? Well, of course, the big schools can afford that new video board, but the small schools really can't. It's just not true anymore, man. Your school isn't too small, and I promise. Okay, 1A, 2A schools, it doesn't matter. Mark and the guys, they're helping them out. Contact Mark today at mark.bridges@acesports.com and let him come give you a quote. Let him show you and your administration the plan. Not really, it's the cheat code, right? Let him show you the cheat code that is fundraising with Ace Sports video boards. Tell him Daniel sent you. This episode is brought to you by Athletic Speed and Movement. At athleticspeedmovement.com, we've taken Del Basquet's 45 years of speed and movement training and put it all in one place just for you. You can get the same training that NFL players have been getting for years, collegiate players have been getting for years, and now high schools across the nation are paying thousands of dollars to bring Del in to install his system, but we've got it online for you. It's time to help your team become faster, not just in the 40, not just their sprint speed, but between the tackles and their cuts while they're chasing down the quarterback. It's time for you to help them become faster everywhere. Jump over to athleticspeedmovement.com. There's an orange button there. Just click it. It says, get the keys to playing faster. You'll get the 3 core movement video from Dell. He's explaining the science behind it, all for just the price of your email. Check it out, athleticspeedmovement.com.
Coaching 101 podcast is sponsored by Findaway Productions. Findaway Productions also sponsors fbcoachsimpson.com for all your coaching needs, with over 30 coaching materials, books, as well as 50 PowerPoints and videos and smaller materials and the free magazine headsets. Findaway Productions also sponsors offensivecoordinatoracademy.com, all things offense, and defensivecoordinatoracademy.com, all things defense.
Appreciate that, Coach. Awesome stuff. We want to talk real quick about the Gun Tea Clinics. I know that this is coming out in mid-January, so AFCA is probably already over. You guys have already missed the Charlotte one. Hopefully you got over there to Charlotte. Coach Simpson, where else can they go now with Charlotte being off the board?
Yeah, you got Phoenix coming up, and then the national one in Arkansas. So not too far for you guys that are kind of centrally located. Coach, you'll like this. We got a guy who's going to talk about how they've used some of your Bixby stuff with the gun tee at that one. I'm really excited to hear what he's going to say. Because I
That'd
think
be interesting.
that's going to be kind of a cool session. But that was a national clinic. We got a bunch of other ones. Just go over to fbcoachsimpson.com/clinics, and it'll pull up all those different options you can go see.
Awesome. And then the Headsets magazine should be coming out here pretty soon. I'm not sure where the deadline was for the January articles, so you can reach out to Kenny or me, or reach out to Jamie. She's the one that puts all that stuff together. So if you've got her email, send her an email and just ask about deadlines if you're wanting to write for the magazine. If not, fbcoachsimpson.com/headsets will get you to the actual publication. You can go read them. Just articles written, by coaches, for coaches, guys explaining everything. I mean, I did leadership last year. I think this year, we'll see. I don't know what I'm right about. I haven't figured out if it'll be continue on leadership or not, but there's articles for everything in there. So if you're looking for a certain play, a certain scheme, whatever it is, Headsets Magazine's got you covered. Awesome. Let's jump right into it here then. Coach Schneider, man, we as I've been studying your offense for about a year. I know that Kenny was just talking about someone going to come over and talk about how they use what you do with the gun tee. So your name and your offense is spreading like wildfire. Nationwide. Like I said earlier, I do podcasts with guys up in the New Jersey area. They know your offense. I mean, it's pretty outstanding. In fact, we probably need to get you a website at some point, man. Let you start selling this bad boy.
No, I don't know.
We discussed before we hit record, like if you would call this thing a multiple offense or not, but I kind of want to talk about like how you got to where you are with that offense. Where'd your inspirations come from? And then just kind of where would you classify it?
People have asked us that before. What offense do you guys run, or what umbrella is it under? And I don't know that we fit any umbrella. Like I was telling you before we started here, a few years ago, we got emails from some guys down in Alabama that were asking us about our single wing offense. And at the time I told them, I said, I don't even know what the single wing is. Like, I need to research what that is. I don't know what that means. So, I don't know that there's a name. When people ask us, we just say it's the Bixby offense. It's just kind of what we've developed. And I think the biggest way we got here is the fact that our staff has been together for so long. Coach Montgomery got here in 2010. I got here in 2011. Most of our offensive staff has been here since 2014, 2015. So when you got guys that have been together that long and kind of know the system and know what we're trying to accomplish with the game plan, it just kind of grows on itself, and we've been a little bit of everything. In 2014, we were almost exclusively 10 personnel, a little bit of 11 personnel, very little motion, more of kind of your air raid, just these are the few plays we're going to run. And we're going to line up in 2x2 and 3x1 and run them. And we had a big running back that we could, try to get a light box and hand him the ball. And then, fast forward 2016, we were a 12 personnel, tight end trade, run power, run outside zone type of offense. And, we've kind of been all over the place. And then in the last few years, just kind of out of necessity, we've built in some of the shifts and motions. Notice that kind of can give guys trouble at times. So we started working towards that. And then once we kind of started going that direction, it just kind of built on itself and snowballed. And we realized, well, if we can, put this shift in, maybe we could do that shift with a little bit different change or this or that. And it's kind of grown from there. So I feel like we've been a little bit of everything, and where we're at now is a mix of all of that. And like I said, with the continuity of our staff, it's nice because we can, in our offensive office, we can say, hey, remember that set or that play that we ran back in 2016? Let's take a look at that. And everyone in the room knows what we're talking about, which is, I know that's very, very unique, but I think that's something that we're fortunate with here at Bixby.
When I was the freshman DC up at Owasso, Cameron came to town running your offense and lined up in the flex bone for his heavy package. And I was just like, I spent all week. By that point, I understood I wasn't going to see the same stuff, right? Each game. But I had tried to think of every possible thing we could without chasing too many ghosts, because I only got so much time. And he lines up in the daggum flex bone and motions a kid orbit motion across the. Yeah. I was like, what is going on here? This guy's got everything. So I feel like the offense can cover any scheme in football.
Yeah, I'd love for it to appear that way, right? That's the goal. Coach Palmer does a great job. When he was here with us, I think he spent 4 years here with us and came in. What was he running at the time? I think he knew slot T or something like that, and came in and didn't really have any idea what we were doing. And then by the time he left his 4th year, and I'm not just saying this is the truth, we were still in plays from our freshman team, and back and forth. And I think that's great whenever you've got a staff, because our junior high staff here is a part of our staff. They work with us on the weekends. They go to the same coaches' dinners. I mean, it's one staff type of deal. So it was really cool. By the end of his time here, we're sharing ideas back and forth from the high school varsity to the freshmen, and they're stealing stuff from us, and we're stealing stuff from them. And he'd bring an idea. Hey, I thought about this shift, and that still goes on now that he's moved on and calling plays and that kind of stuff. Our 8th grade staff this year stole some shifts and personnel groups from them that they were messing with. So I think that's a really cool situation that we've got where all of our coaches can work together and share ideas like that.
We actually had Cameron on the podcast way back when, and that was the reasoning. That was the whole reason for that episode was, how does a freshman staff work with a varsity staff, right? Like, what should it look like? Because I think that's something that if I could copy paste it at any school, I'm going to find success. When the varsity OC is going, hey, freshman OC, I'm stealing that play, or did you try this? I feel like a lot of people right now are stuck in that world of, and we're going to talk this a little bit too, but keep it super simple. And then you better just do what I tell you can do, right? There's not that, I guess it's, I don't even know what word would go there, but just the ability to go out and do whatever they want to do. And I've loved that. So we brought him on to talk a little freshman ball.
And we do have, our junior high is running our offense in that they're going to run the same. They're going to run counter. They're going to run a little bit of inside zone, But if you found a cool way to run it, or a formation that gives you a great look, or a shift that got you into it, awesome, let's do it, But they're not out there putting in the triple option or deep choice or, a crazy, totally different scheme. But if there's a way that you could shift or motion or, align guys differently to get to one of our schemes, yeah, let's do it, man, and test it out and see if it works. And we kind of, our lower level programs, our JVs and our freshmen, we're playing to win, obviously, but we also use that a little bit of time to experiment. This is something we've been thinking about. Let's see how it works. Or let's see if it has a chance to work or whatever. So it's kind of fun doing it that way.
Yeah, it brings a lot more to the table. We'll kind of jump to the second question here, and I just want to talk about. I mean, we've obviously said you have pretty much a multiple offense. You can run all this different stuff. We are in that era of keep it simple for your kids so they can fly around and play football. So how do you guys find the time, or how do you get all of this stuff installed? I guess longevity is probably the answer. You know what? Be at a place 10 years and you quit having to install day one stuff. But
that helps, yeah. We do a good job. Our kids do a really good job. Football is year round here at Bixby. And that doesn't mean that our kids don't go play other sports. But our staff and most of our kids, a lot of our kids are thinking about football year round. We work hard in the spring. So when we go in and we have meetings in the spring, that kind of stuff. So when we go into spring ball, that's when we do our install, right? And a lot of it's the same stuff we ran the previous year, but that's when we're going to install. That's when we're going to teach the incoming sophomores, which they've played for our freshman team. So they're already doing a lot of our stuff. So we install it in the spring. And then, as you guys know, at least in Oklahoma, and I assume in Arkansas too, summer is football, right? I mean, we got guys going to play AAU basketball and baseball, and we encourage that and we love that, but we're doing football all summer. So that install that we do in the spring, we continue with it in the summer. We'll, lots of 7-on-7. So we're still running our base stuff. Now we may dress it up a little bit different for 7-on-7 purposes, a little more empty and those type of things, but
right.
We're using our terminology. We're running our plays, those things. And then even like in our spa strength and conditioning stuff in the mornings in the summer, one day a week, we'll have kind of our conditioning, I guess you could say, is we'll run plays on air just to keep that stuff in the kids' minds, and it's not anything crazy, but it's that install that we did in the spring, we're hitting it all summer. So when we get to practice 1 in the fall, it's not install 1, it's game plan practice 1. And that's really benefited us, especially now that we're playing week 0 games. So you lose that second scrimmage. So we have, a week of practice, a scrimmage, and then a week of practice and a game, essentially. So
Yeah,
being able to
everybody's on
jump
week
right
0
into
now.
game planning practices has been beneficial to us rather than having to start practice 1 in the fall with install 1. And that took time. We didn't start doing that until the last 4 or 5 years probably. But I think that does benefit us as far as just the first half of your question, how do we get stuff in? And then so once we have our base stuff in, our kids know it. They've ran it all spring, all summer, and they've done that for multiple years at this point. And then it becomes, okay, how do we run that play out of a different set? How do we run that play with a different motion, different alignment after a shift or whatever it might be? So that's kind of how we start it. And then we have kind of a checklist in our game plan each week where we want to make sure we hit these things that, from talking to defensive coaches, from talking to our defensive staff, we think gives defensive guys problems, right? We always want to carry an empty formation each week because every defense in America's got an empty check, right? They're working on what do we do on empty. We want to always carry a formation into the boundary formation because that's something that we hear defenses talk about. They've got to talk about. They've got to adjust to. Unbalanced. For us, unbalanced is linemen. When we talk about unbalanced, it's lineman unbalanced. We always want to carry an unbalanced set. We always want to carry an overload set. For us, when we talk about overload, that's wide receivers, right? So when you put a wide receiver over and he's ineligible or whatever. So we kind of have a checklist that each week, and we may not hit every one of them every week, but we want to go through that checklist in our game plan and say, all right, make sure we've got a formation in the boundary. Make sure we've got an auto shift formation. Make sure we've got an empty formation each week. Now we're going to run those same schemes that we've been running since spring install, but we're trying to find new ways to dress them up. And like I said, that goes back to our staff continuity. We can come in on Saturday and these guys that we've been together for 10 years can say, hey, how about we remember that shift from 2017? Let's take a look at that again this week or whatever it might be. So
what I really got when I started studying your system and all y'all's trades and shifts and stuff was like having movement, motions, trades, but with intent. I feel like sometimes we get caught in this, I'm running the jet series, so I'm going to jet and maybe I'll hand it off, maybe I won't. But when I started reading your stuff or getting into your offense, it's like we're doing that with everything, right? I mean, there's so much, you gain so much intel just by moving a guy, but it may not be the jet guy, or he may go last, or he may go first. I don't know. There's just so much going on. But it really threw it, like that intent of movement. When I was a young DC, I blitzed because that was the cool thing to do. And as I grew as a DC, I understood like you blitz with intent, right? There's a reason I'm sending that guy, not just to send a guy. I kind of learned the same thing from your offense. It's like all this motion and trying to get leverage and space and all, like it's the offense, one, is conducive to allowing you to do that, but two, I think it taught me how to do that a lot.
Yeah, that's we get that question, not a lot, but sometimes, why are you doing that shift? Or why are you doing that motion? And there's a million different reasons, maybe it's to gain leverage. Maybe it's to get the guys that we want in these spots to be in these spots. Maybe sometimes it's just, hopefully it confuses that 17-year-old inside linebacker. Maybe it's to hide a guy or whatever, but we try to have reasons behind it all. And that's not to say that every single motion we've talked about, like, okay, we're doing this to try to get this exact response from the defense. Sometimes it is just, we don't want to line up in a stagnant formation and run inside zone and let them have their absolute favorite defense called to stop it. Maybe we're going to use a motion just to get them to check base, or maybe check out of that blitz like you're talking about, or whatever it might be. So there's a lot of different reasons that we look at using different shifts and motions.
Yeah, we just watched the Tampa Bay Buccaneers got Mike Evans to his 1,000 yards for 11 straight seasons, right? And that's what they did. They had to go out and game plan how to, and Baker talked about it in his post game about, well, we knew they were going to double cover him because we were going to him. They knew it. We knew it. So we had to use a motion to get him over into, he was the interior guy on a trip set, yep. Right? Because you're not going to double team the interior guy on a trip set. And then they just ran him out away from the defense anyway and just let him get his 8 yards. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes into that. Coach Simpson, I don't want to leave you out of the conversation here, boss. Your show and everything. So I know you guys install a ton too. Do y'all take the same approach? Is it spring and summer and then it rolls into your fall? Is that how you're getting ready?
Yeah, I think there's probably a lot of similarities just listening to Coach talk, and I've seen his stuff too. And I want to go back to the kind of the first question he had. You kind of asked. Let me make sure I got it down. I wrote down some notes here. How does he get to a multiple offense? Because a lot of guys are going to listen to this and they're going to think we need to go do a multiple offense. Well, make sure you understand. Coach, the words I wrote down were we've been there a long time. We slowly evolved. You're going to get places that you want to get. You need to have kind of an end goal in mind, but you also need to kind of have a realistic where we are right now. Like I get brought into a lot of schools. I'm sure Coach probably works a lot of schools where they haven't done any of this stuff. So, and he hit it nail on the head. We're going to get really good at these base concepts first. Then you can add all the trinkets, and you need to have those. Those are tools, to be successful. But you can't just jump out into spending 90% of your time on how to run a shift and a motion and suck at running counter. Like ultimately, if he can't run counter good, he can do whatever he wants. We're going to whip his tail. But if he can run counter good and then he can add this other stuff, that becomes really, really difficult. And the word I wrote down, which we've been using here too, is the word evolve. You got to constantly evolve, just like this year. Guys are studying Coach's offense. They're going to try to get ahead of him. He probably saw new problems this year that he hasn't seen in previous years that people were doing to stop him. So his job this year as an OC in the offseason, what were the problems? What can I get better at? What can we add in or take away or change to kind of solve those things? Because if you're not, in my opinion, if you're not constantly evolving, then you're going to get caught. That's why there's a lot of good offenses out there. But you're seeing a lot of offenses now that are becoming multiple, because if you just stay in the same thing for 20 years, people catch up to you. So you've got to have nuances every year. You don't throw out your whole offense, but you add little nuances. So I thought that was big. And then Coach mentioned it too. The year they had a stud running back, they were 10 personnel and running the ball with him. And I bet in the years they didn't have that guy, they had to put the shifts and the trades and the moves and all that stuff. But question you had on this one on time, Daniel, I think the big thing for us is similar to Coach, but we also look at in season. So in season, Coach is blessed to probably be in the same position we're in. You got non-conference, then you have your conference games. Some of those, you're probably a prohibitive favorite in, where you can kind of do different things. Then you have those games, you have to win, and then you have the playoffs. And in my mind, so yeah, you do have the spring, like Coach mentioned. Then you get the summer. That's stages 1 and 2. I look at like October, August, and September football almost as preseason-y now. We still want to win the games. We want to win. I don't like to lose. So we're trying to win. But we're going to try to win and try to do some things to help evolve our offense and our defense. Do some things that we're going to need in those games in late October or in those games in late November, or if you're lucky enough to get to December, you can kind of go to those things. So I even look at in season in segments, kind of a preseason-y type games, early conference type games, and then the games that, ultimately you're trying to win if you're going to have a successful season. So I think those are big. And then the word I think Coach used, and Daniel, you brought it up, was intent. Like you need to have an intent. If you're going to do something offensively, what is your reasoning? And Coach had a really good answer on emotions. On it might be for a lot of different reasons, but don't just run it to run it. Like if there's not a reason, don't run it to run it. For our main intent on that is the two things Coach mentioned is matchups. Can we out leverage you and create a matchup that way, or create a matchup player versus player, or can I make you play me vanilla? Like defenses they're going to clinics today too. Like they're going to get better about being multiple and attacking, and that's what they want to show you. And if you sit stagnant, you let them use all their tools. But if you're moving, you basically give them two options. You can go man zero, and I got you, send it, or you can go to your base check. But we're not going to let you go to your whole tool bag. So offense have a lot of ways they can do that. The old way was just tempo, up tempo, up tempo, up tempo, and you can still do that. The new way that I think Coach is using and a lot of other people are using is the shifts, the trades, the moves, multiple formations, multiple looks, and defensively that really handcuffs you. It makes you play, again, extremely vanilla or extremely aggressive. But if I know what you're going to do as a DC, it's a lot easier to call plays. A lot easier to call plays if I know what I'm going to get before I even call a play.
Yeah, I think the movement, especially in Coach Schneider, I don't know if you classify yours like this or not, but I call it modular offense, right? Where you can tag up, something I really like about the Bixby offense is that your duo or inside zone, and then you're running your what you call the monster back around, and he's got 10 different jobs he can do within one run scheme. And I think that is awesome. It just becomes very modular. But same thing with those motions and shifts, right? I think that's offense of the future is what I've called it on multiple podcasts now, is the ability to just tell any guy, hey, you're going to do this play instead. And it changes the whole offense. I mean, the defense has to block, defend a completely different play. But to our kids, it's not. It's one play with a tag. It kind of takes us into our last question, Coach Schneider. How have you ever got to a point you think you have too much, or how much is too much when you start doing all these installs?
Yeah, I think there's a limit, for sure. In our game planning process, 2 or 3 years ago when we were doing a little bit of motioning and shifting, we would limit ourselves to 10 formations to take into a game. 10 formation sheets on the game plan. As we started motioning and shifting more and more, we're down to, I think this year we were carrying probably 5 or 6 each week. And to us, that's less. To our kids, that's less. But I think if you were to look at our game film from 4 years ago and our game film from this past season, I don't think you would see a decline in formations presented, if that makes sense. We've just kind of changed the way we do it. So I do think there's a line of too much, and kind of my uh, judgment point for that is if by the end of practice on Tuesday I don't have the entire game plan memorized and known like the back of my hand for me, then it's too much, right? Because if I can't have the entire thing down, it's hard to ask those kids to know their part. And ultimately, like, I'm the only one that's got to know the entire all of it, right? Now our offensive staff, our coaches do, but I mean, like, as far as the kids, our ex receiver may not have any idea what the monster tag is telling him, and he doesn't need to, right? But if I can't keep it all straight by the end of Tuesday practice, it's probably too much. We need to fire something. And even there's sometimes, when we finish game planning on Sunday and we go home and think about it, and I come back Monday and look at our note, and I'm like, what was that? What was that great idea we had? I can't remember. Well, if I can't remember from Sunday night to Monday, it's probably there's too many things, too many good ideas on Sunday. So we'll start firing it down, and that's really kind of our process. Like, the entire week is a whittling down of the game plan. Sunday it starts with this, and then Monday after practice, these few plays may get fired, and then Tuesday, and then by Thursday we've solidified the game plan, right? And so then we go into Thursday with that game plan, and then at halftime we're cutting more stuff out. So the second half. So by the time we get to the second half of the game, that's probably when we're finally down to our very best stuff, because we've kind of whittled away everything else getting to that point. So yeah, I think there's too much, but one thing I will say, I don't think people give kids enough credit sometimes. They think, well, there's no way those guys can know all that. Well, try it. That you don't know if they can or they can't. And there's been times where we're actually surprised by it. Like, they're picking this up better than we thought they would. Or and to be totally honest, like, sometimes putting more on a kid's plate causes more focus. Like, we've learned that. Coach mentioned every now and then you'll play a district game where you're a big time favorite, right? We may do more complicated things that week to force that focus in on a kid. Like, so they're not thinking about, oh, this team we play might stink. They're thinking about, well, crap, on this shift, what do I do again? Just adding that forced focus a little bit. So I think there's a line where you can do too much, and you got to watch that. But I think the line is further than most people think. I think give the kids credit. They're smart, and I've heard people tell us, well, that's because you're at a big school and blah blah. Well, our kids play both ways.
Right.
Our starting inside wide receivers playing every snap of safety. So I don't think that's an excuse that, oh, we're at a big school, because our kids aren't one way kids. Very few of our kids are one way. So I think you can put more on the kids' plate than most people probably realize or give them credit for.
My mentor is Kenny Ridley, and he's a retired now coach in South Central Oklahoma. And he told me early in my career, like, whatever you expect out of kids is what they'll learn. So if you have great expectations, they're going to be great football players. They're going to learn a lot. If you want to go out and teach country cover 3 for every snap on defense, then they'll learn country cover 3. So it's kind of what you present them with, they're going to absorb. I don't let it get past me that, like, every scientifically proven, every generation is multiple IQ points smarter than the one before it. So it's, you get to that point where you're like, well, now, like what you said, like, you better be able to keep it straight for the game plan, but those kids can take in a lot more than you think. I mean, it's just, it's proven they're smarter than us.
They do a good job. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, ultimately, those kids want to be successful, right? Like, they're going to do their very best to do their job as well as they can.
Yes.
Everybody that's playing a sport, they want to win, they want to be successful. So instead of you idiot, you can't get it right, we want to take the approach of, all right, how can we help you get this figured out? Like, could we call it a different word? Could we change it a little bit to help you remember it? Especially with those guys like Braden Presley for us this year. Moved him around, did a lot of things with him. And, after Monday practices, I'd go and ask him, like, all right, Braden, does this stuff make sense? If it doesn't, what can we change? Do we need to fire it? Do we need to change the way we call it? Or just give you more reps of it? Like, I think that conversation's got to be there too. It can't be just a dictatorship of, gosh darn it, learn what I'm saying. Like, we need that expectation out of them. But at the same time, there's got to be that back and forth with the kids of, do you understand what we're doing? Does this make sense to you? Are we on the same page? And if not, that's ultimately on us, right? Not the kids. So how can we make it easier for you or whatever? So
I love how modular your system is, and just getting to run it with Cameron this year was great. Just watching, like you said it perfect a minute ago. The X receiver doesn't need to know what the H-back's doing. It doesn't matter, right? Those tags don't matter to him. There is a little bit of that, like on defense, it doesn't work as much because you need to know where your help is. So who's going to be there, who isn't. On offense, you get to kind of change the game. Like, you get to separate those, and that division of the complexity, I love that as well, right? Let the O-linemen just run inside zone, duo, and power counter all night long. They're going to run 4 plays. And then we'll let the skinny kids who aren't trying to move a mountain every single play, we'll let them do all the complex stuff. So that's wonderful. Kenny, we'll go to you. Kind of the same question. Just what is your idea of how much is too much?
Yeah, I'm gonna start. Coach did such a good job on weekly game plan. I may add a little bit of that, but I'm gonna go back even farther. Like, if you're building out your offense, you're listening to this podcast, and you're right now, like everybody, you're looking at your whole offense and you're trying to build out. What are we going to do? Some more big picture. I think, to me, you always want to put in more than you're going to need. Like, especially now, like right now till August, we're going to have way more stuff in than we're probably going to run this year. We're going to see, we think this is a good concept. We think this could help our kids. We like this. We think it could help our kids. And we're going to try all this stuff during the offseason. We're going to try it all during 7-on-7. And when we throw 15 picks, we'll probably go, okay, that's not for us. But we're going to try it all, because I think you can always throw stuff out. It's really hard to put stuff in during the season. Like, it's hard to add things that you didn't really work much during the off season in, but it's really easy to say, we're not real good at inside zone, so there goes that. We're going to run power, or whatever it's going to be. So we're always going to put more in early. I think the big thing that we do, and I know Coach probably does too, and we've talked about on this podcast a bunch, is you tag things. You tag things so that every player can do that, because I do think it's super important that if you get a look, I think that's where today's really good OCs separate themselves from the okay ones, is if I get the look I want, I can freeze it, check it, and run the tag immediately. Like, Kevin Kelly's a guy I really look up to in Arkansas. He scores 1,000 points, and he has those real quick one-word tags where he saw you in X coverage or X front, and he can run it right then before you can fix it. So I think you got to have that ability within your offense. That starts on the front end. Like, you can't do that on a Tuesday. You got to do that in the spring. Like, these are our tags for this kid to do X, Y, and Z. I think and Coach hit the nail on the head too, I don't think it's the kids that limit what we can do. Like, it's not really the kids. Somewhat it might be, but it's how much can the coach retain? How much can I retain? That's what's going to limit you. And I don't mean that to be ugly. You need to know your limits. Like, I think smart coaches are the ones that know, crap, this is too much. I can't handle this. Because you need to be able to know it. Like Coach said, I need to know it now to call it. And there's no shame in saying, I don't know enough. I've got to cut some stuff out. Like, you're better off doing that than confusing yourself. And that happens a lot. I think we say simple, we think simple means we got to be vanilla. Simple means something that the kids can do and I can understand. It's complex up here. Like our offense, and I know Coach's offense, on the coaching side, it's not simple, but we're paid money to do it. For the kids, it's got to be simple. And I think for me, if you're asking yourself, are we putting too much in? Here's the question I would ask. If the game is on the line, what are you calling? Like, what are you calling right now on 4th and 4? If you don't know the answer, you don't have an identity, you probably have too much in. And I would also say, like, the other thing is, if I told you, okay, Coach was my OC, Coach, by the way, if you want to come on over, it's open door. If Coach is my OC,
5-hour drive.
Here's questions I would ask Coach. I'd say, okay, Coach, if you got an hour to practice offense, what are you putting in? All right, you got 40 minutes to practice offense. What are you putting in? You got 30 minutes now. That's all you get. You get 30 minutes. What's going in? Well, that needs to be your priority, because you answered the question yourself. What is most important? And then we can slowly add this other stuff. I think those are the questions you need to be asking this offseason. Game's on the line. I only have a 40-minute practice, 30-minute practice. That's what you're going to boil down your offense to. The other stuff is great tools to have. You need it, but it's just that. It's tools. I thought the coach said something, too, that was really good about on Tuesday. We do Tuesday practice for us, man. It's tough on our offense. We turn the defense loose. They know what we're trying to do. Like, they know our calls, and they're out there just – and so we kind of figure out Tuesday what's working and what's not working. Like what Coach said, I think it's important that you structure your practice where Tuesday is hard. Like, make Tuesday practice difficult so that Friday's easy. And then Wednesday we kind of trim stuff down and we back it off a little bit. And Thursday, of course, you're backing off quite a bit. The last thing Coach said that I wrote a note down on was some kids could handle more. Like, you have one kid you mentioned, you move him all over the field. Like this year for us, my son plays our wingback spot. So he had like 16 tags he had to learn because he could come home with me and I could grill him on it. Our other kids might have had 3 tags or 4 tags because, they're newer to football. They've not been around it their whole life. And so if you can build an offensive structure, then you adjust it to your players. And and then our quarterback this year, he was a sophomore. So early on, pretty vanilla stuff with him. But as he got more comfortable, more on his plate, more on his plate, more on his plate, knowing your kids, I think, is extremely important, and who you can put more on. Like this year, we moved our wing back more than we probably ever will. Well, next year, my son's going to be a senior. So he's going to be all over the field because he's been in the system now since he was in the 7th grade. So I can take and put a ton on him, where our starting tight ends, a first-year starter, we're going to keep his stuff a little more simple. I think that's just knowing what you have and being able to move those guys around.
That's awesome. I want to get a little bit into evolution here, and Kenny, we're going to come right back to you, and then Tyler, we'll finish off with you for the last one here. When we start looking at evolution and where does a coach look out to find inspiration? So one, kind of where do you think the gun tee goes from here, and where's that inspiration come from? If I'm a young coach and I need to go turn on ball and learn what people in this room, which is, you guys stacked almost 30 wins together, if not more than that. Where are y'all going to watch ball to find that inspiration to learn good football?
Shoot, yeah, we got Coach on the podcast, so there's some good stuff out there. I think you can watch NFL and college. I think you should constantly be watching things, and I think the temptation for putting too much in is going to be very high in the next couple of months. So be careful. I think that one, you do need to go research. Like, we're researching a ton of stuff right now. We'll research probably about 10 different things, mainly that match our personnel. Like this year, I'm going to have a returning starter at quarterback for the first time in 6 years. So I'm all over the passing game right now. We're about to be the gun air raid. We're excited about all this stuff because it's my first time to have a guy back who's pretty good as a sophomore, and I got him 2 more years. So we're doing pretty deep dives into different pass concepts. Guys that we see are running things really well. I'm reaching out through different either social media or phone calls or YouTube. There's a lot of information out there, and I'm purchasing different things that might be tools to help us learn this stuff. We will probably look at 10 or 12 different things, but reality wise is by the time we get to August, we'll probably have boiled that down to 2 or 3 things. And I think that's kind of where you've got to go, but it matches our personnel. I'm bringing back a running back and a wing back who I just mentioned, who were all state players for us. So we're going to look at some stuff we can do in the RPO game with them and the passing game to our running back. He ran for 2,100 yards. He had 400 yards receiving. I'm looking deep into pass concepts with the running back. He's pretty special. Pass concepts to an H-back. So we're researching stuff that matches our personnel. I put out books. So guys always kind of, how do you put up so many books? Well, all we do is we put out what we evolved that year. So we started the gun tee back in 2016. Here's what we had. Well, 2024, here was our things we added this year because they matched our personnel. So to me, it's not so much like you do have to look at trends of where the game is going, but I think more you need to look at what do we have. And then we didn't win a state championship like Coach did. I got put out in the semifinals. What do I got to do to beat that team? Like, what do I got to do to win conference again? What do I have to do to get to the semifinals again? Because it's hard to win. So you need to look at the games that we won by 3 points and 7 points and go, what was our problems in those? So we're going to look at where were we limited offensively where I could have given our kids more tools. And then we look at our personnel. We're going to do a ton of research. Right now, our coaches, I've got them all assigned to do different things. I've got one coach looking at quick game. One coach is looking at run game. One coach is looking at, and I'm looking at the overall. And we'll come together, and then we'll play around with it, and then we'll throw out the stuff that doesn't work. That's kind of where we are. I'm sure Coach probably has different places he goes, but I think the best way you can do that, clinics are great. Nothing wrong with clinics, but getting 3 hours of hearing a guy talk about whatever is not really going to help you. Phone call and talking to a coach, going and visiting a coach, spending a couple of days with a coach, because having something on a whiteboard is great. How do you teach it? How do you teach the progression? What are the problems? There's so many deep things you got to dig into before you just start running stuff, because a lot of times that's the temptation is we run it and then it doesn't work and we don't know how to fix it. So you got to have those kind of conversations too.
Absolutely. That's good stuff. All right, Coach Schneider, you can bring us on home here. So kind of the same question to you, like where's the evolution go next and where are you looking out for inspiration?
That's a good question. And like Coach mentioned, that's our job this spring to kind of figure out what are we good at? What can we be good at? What do we think this next group's going to be good at? Like I mentioned, we've been everything from 10 personnel spread to 12 personnel quarterback run. So where are we going to be? What are we going to be good at? We got a returning quarterback, so that should be beneficial to us. A bunch of skill kids coming back, going to have to replace some offensive line. So just kind of basing that. And the way we start that process is our first spring meeting with the coaches, which like actual spring ball meeting, which will be, I think it's first week after spring break. We'll come in and we'll rank all of our offensive players, just who are our very best players. And then we'll put it on the board. We'll put all the rankings together, and that gives us a full ranking, right? And then we'll look at that and with the idea of we want to build our offense from players, formations, plays. I know everybody talks about that, and that's obvious, right? But that's how we started. In the spring, we're going to rank our players. So if in our top 10 players, if we've got 4 linemen and 1 wide receiver, well, we probably need to be building towards a run game that year. If we got 5 wide receivers and 1 offensive lineman, we may need to spread the ball and get those guys on the field. So that's kind of how it starts for us, and then we start building on that. As far as inspiration, man, if you ask my wife, she'd tell you the same thing. I'm an addict to football. If I'm not watching at least one game every day something's up. I must be on vacation or something, right? So I'm trying to get ideas from anyone, everyone, high school teams, college teams, NFL teams, wherever it might come from. And I think the big thing when you're finding that inspiration or finding that new idea, like Coach mentioned, is how does that fit us? I think a lot of people see a play on Saturday and they're like, oh man, that's an awesome play. And they try to run that exact play instead of saying, hey, that's an awesome play. What made that awesome? And how can we use that aspect to work for us? A lot of times we'll see a shift or a unique formation and say, hey, that's really cool. Maybe that team ran 4 verts out of it. But for us, it's a better formation to line up and run bubble screen with inside zone. But the idea of, wow, that formation could give the defense trouble or whatever it might be, right? Does that make sense? So I think that inspiration comes from everywhere. As far as guys that I'm specifically watching, again, against my wife's wishes, she's an OU grad, but I'm a huge Lincoln Riley fan. Got to meet him and talk some ball with him when he first got to OU. Been a fan ever since. I think he does a really good job. I don't think our offense looks like theirs per se. They don't motion much. They don't shift much, but a lot of the play design and just philosophy, I'm watching him pretty close. Lane Kiffin, I think, does a really good job. Try to steal ideas from them. Colt Nickey at Penn State that was at Kansas. Faulkner out at Georgia Tech, really have starting to like his stuff this year. I was hoping, though, you would bring him in just so we could have a closer eye on it, right? But I think all of that stuff is get ideas from everywhere. I would caution against, or at least it's not the way we do it, is find that one offense and, all right, we're going to do that, right? Well, maybe that doesn't fit you, or maybe you don't like. There's a lot of, like Coach said, there's a lot of good offense out there. There's a lot of good offensive schemes, but if I don't understand it well enough to coach it, then it's not good for us, So it can't just be like, wow, that play is awesome. That's really cool. Let's do that. Well, what part of it's cool and does it fit us? Can we do it? Can our kids do it? And can we coach it to our kids is a big one too. So I think that's a big part of it, And then one other thing I took a note, sorry, Coach, took a note to circle back to when we were talking about too little, too much in the game plan and those type of things. Couple lessons we've learned in that aspect. Went to a state championship game in 2020 with a couple of looks that we just knew were going to be great. They can't line up to this formation. Our player in this matchup's better than theirs. Man, this is going to be awesome. Kind of just settled on these are what we're going to do because looking at it on film, it has to work. It's going to be great. Got in the game and it wasn't great and it didn't work. And then it was like, oh crap, what do we do now? So we're going to err on the side of carrying too much into a game now. And if we don't need it, awesome, cool. That's fine. No problem. But I'm never going to let that happen again to where I get into a game and, all right, they're stopping what we thought was going to be good. What next? And we didn't have a what next. Luckily our defense played lights out and bailed us out in that game. And I think we won 17-14 or something. But we're not going to let that happen again, And then the other side of it, the too much, too little debate, kind of something that we do, the coach was kind of mentioning is if we've got 2 tight ends and one of them's really good at this and one of them's really good at that, well, they don't both need to know the same tags, right? We can, if this guy's good at running the split zone and this guy's good at counter, well, that's how we're going to build those tags for those players. Wide receivers, if you need to know these couple plays at wide receiver and this other wide receiver, you need to know these couple. Right. So we build it that way. And it also puts more kids on the field doing that. Right. Instead of your one X receiver having to know every single play, which we do have some of those guys too. Right. But if this X knows these plays and this X knows these plays, then now we can run more plays with fewer kids having to get confused or whatever. And in the last 3, 4, 5 years, maybe we've taken that even further to the quarterback position. We play multiple quarterbacks. And it's not like this series is you and this series is you. We'll switch every other play if we need to. And we've played as much as 3 in a season where we're switching in a game, 3 in a game, right? And part of the reason for that is if we've got 2 good quarterbacks, if we had 2 good running backs, we'd play both of them, right? So if we got 2 good quarterbacks, we're going to play both of them. And we're going to build packages that play to their strengths and allow us to become more multiple, but put less on a kid's plate, if that makes sense, by kind of divvying it up. So, just some notes I took while Coach was talking that I thought might be worth hitting on there.
Oh, that's awesome. I have to ask real quick, and we'll start closing out here, but have you ever got to a game, and I know that you guys are super modular with all these tags, can you piece things together in game to solve a problem? Or is it like, hey, we didn't practice that, so I'm not gonna change things? Do you just have to have like your one of ones out there, or how do you
No,
kind of do that in a game?
our game tying touchdown in the state championship this year, we had not ever practiced that play, but the receiver had practiced that tag, the lineman had practiced that protection, the backfield had practiced that play action. So like you said, we don't necessarily talk about it this way with the kids or explain it this way with the kids, but in my mind, we're teaching them puzzle pieces. And then we can put the puzzle together however we need to, however it fits best. So like that particular play, they all knew this tag does this to the formation, this tag does this to the play, this tag does this to the backfield action. We had never put all those tags together in that manner before. But in the game, we felt like, hey, we may be able to get them on this. Let's do this. And it took 15 seconds of our wide receiver coach saying, hey, wide receiver, on this play, we're going to tag it this. And just remember, this is what we're doing. Boom, run him out there. And we ran it. Super fortunate that it worked, right? That's not always the case. But, yeah, definitely there are times that we can kind of build that tag, put that puzzle together in game. We don't want to live that way, right? We're not going in and just, I think this will work, put this, and this together on the fly. We want to practice what we run, but in the way that we do it, I think you can do that. We had practiced all of those things.
Yes.
We just had never practiced them put together that way, if that makes sense.
Because with Daniel, we had the same thing, and we won our quarterfinal game running RPOs that we had in, but not with that kid. And our quarterback was seeing it, and we did it. And then we play in the next round, and we're trying to run the RPO to our wing. We run like a little same side RPO, and he got blown up. So our receiver looked at me, and our quarterback looked at me, and they went, and I'm like, okay, they see it. Well, we've never thrown the go ball on that, but 85 yards later, it's not something we practiced or was in, but you got to, like Coach said, you got to be able to take advantage of a flaw in the defense. Like you got to be, and right then, like if you don't have the words that can do it, you can't call timeout and draw it up because they're going to fix it. But if you can do it in game right then, it gives you such tools. So I love it.
Yeah, that's perfect. Talking concepts here, and Coach, I love that you said your inspiration is Lincoln Riley or whoever, all those coaches in the college you're looking out. But they have to fit what you do. You're not going out and copy pasting. I think that's great, and I think football is very conceptual, right? It's power counter, inside zone, outside zone. Duo is one right now that people run different. You need to find the version of duo that fits you best, right? Maybe Nick Caduti down at Full Shear. It may be Chip over where's he at? In Alabama now, I think. Chip Siegel. Maybe the way he runs duo. But you got to find the one that fits your rules and kind of does what you do. I'm a big gap scheme guy, so we're gap down backer. Chip teaches it like I think it's gap down buddy or something. So it's like the same terminology. It fits my rules, right? I'm right now I'm getting my air raid certification, and it's just part of my spring go be a better coach, right? I want to know more about the air raid because I don't know how to teach the progressions. What did the old school air raid before everybody got their fingerprints on it, what did it look like and how did people teach it? Because I'm not a pass guy. I'm great with the O-line. I'm great in the run game. I'm learning the passing side of the house. But I can see where, like, okay, this is where these plays came from. This is how they've evolved. This is how I should be teaching those progressions if I'm fulfilled. Or going right back to Hal Mummy's quick game. Like, it's the same stuff, right? Stick is no different for him than it is for anyone else. It's just a quick game. So how is he teaching it versus how I do, and do my rules fit? I can't go be the next Mike Leach or Hal Mummy and run the air raid. It'll never work for me. But I can take their things and put it right back into my offense and make it fit my rules or my concepts. So I think that's a great piece of advice that you brought up there, Coach. Sweet, guys. Well, we'll start closing out here. Coach Simpson, hit us with the what not to do as a coach, and then we'll close things out.
Yeah, I'll be pretty quick on this one. We've kind of hammered it through on this whole episode. I think what not to do as a coach is to limit yourself. I think you got to be smart. You can't be. There is such a thing as too much, and there is such a thing as not putting things together that work. I kind of tell my kids this all the time. I love chocolate, and I love steak. I don't like chocolate on my steak. Like you got to make sure this stuff is kind of working together, but don't limit what you can do. I think it's a big thing that we've kind of hit on here. It may not be the first year you can do all this stuff, but if you're at a school, I think if you're at a school 3, 4, 5 years and you're not having to just completely change systems every year, you can morph into extremely multiple, like Coach has been, and it all should circle back to what kind of kids do we have and what gives them the best tools to win.
Yeah, that's very succinct and exactly right. I feel like we do that sometimes as coaches, just that minimization, and we don't get the full potential, right? Where's their ceiling? Fill it out, go attack it, and then let that be a benefit to you. Sweet. Before we get out of here, we'll talk about our sponsors. Ace Sports. This is the time to call Mark or Ryan. Mark, if you're apparently in 49 states, and Ryan, if you're here in Oklahoma, they may have other guys. I don't know their names because I live in Oklahoma and Mark is across the border in Arkansas. So hit up Ace Sports if you're looking for that video board. Look, it's just fundraising through ad revenue, letting the community work for you. I think it's really is the cheat code in fundraising. Coach Schneider, I think y'all's board is an Ace Sports board, isn't it? Don't know. I think theirs was like the biggest in the nation at one point.
It's enormous. That's all I know. Yeah.
Yeah. And it is awesome. So if you look up Bixby Spartans, you can look up Southside Southerners, check out their boards. It gives you some ideas of what Ace Sports can bring to you. Social media, Coach Schneider, if somebody wants to reach out and talk to you about the Bixby offense, the single wing or whatever it happens to be, where can they reach out to you at?
Oh man, Twitter's the easiest, and I honestly don't know my handle. I think it's maybe T Schneider 1410, maybe. That's one of those made a long time ago, but there's nothing tricky. I don't have any weird symbols in my name. If you search my name, it's on there. But yeah, we're always conversating with guys on social media through Twitter and those type of things. So always enjoy finding new coaches and building new relationships with guys.
If somebody wants to come over and visit you and dig into the system, is there a better time this offseason to get in versus a worse time?
The spring is getting more and more busy. I'm sure you guys feel that too, but January is usually a lot of clinics that we're heading out to in early February. And then so March, there's a little bit of a window, and then spring ball is usually the best, you can come actually see what we're doing. And something that we've kind of started doing the last few years is try to get, if there's 3-4 different staffs that are wanting to come visit, get them all in on the same day. And then just spend the day kind of talking ball all together. That way, I think everybody benefits from it at that point then, right? They can ask us questions, but then now we've got 4 staffs here, 5 staffs, whatever it is that we can bounce ideas off of and learn from them as well. And that just makes it a little bit easier instead of having to have that meeting 5 different times. We have it one time with 5 groups and can get a lot out of it. So we'll be putting one of those together this spring as well. Haven't put a date on it, but it'll probably be after spring break. So after spring break into spring ball is usually the best time.
Perfect. Coach Simpson, social media wise, where are you at?
All things FB Coach Simpson. So FBCoachSimpson.com, at FB Coach Simpson on Twitter, or you can find me on Facebook, any of those.
Awesome. You can find me on Twitter at Coach Chambo OK. You can email me at chamberlainfootballconsulting@gmail.com. And then jump over to YouTube, the Patreon, wherever you want to go show some support if you want to. The podcast is at Coaching 101 Pod on Twitter/X. We want to thank you for being a listener to the Coaching 101 podcast. We'll hope you join us next week as we continue to make the complex more simple. Please consider subscribing to the show so you'll always know new episodes are out. Coach Schneider, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for coming and being, one of the top guests so far, man. But it's definitely the most rings. So it'll. I hope that we can, continue to have the relationship and jump back on another time, maybe after you win the next ring or whatever.
That's a tall task, but no, I appreciate you guys having us on, and anytime we get to promote Bixby Spartan football, we'll take advantage of that. So
awesome. Well, we love the things y'all are doing over there, man. Keep it up. We'll leave you with this. It's hard to beat someone who never gives up. No matter the situation, find a way.